Bluey is a worldwide phenomenon. Every kid and parent on the planet knows this show, but not everyone has watched the exact same version of it. Did you know there are things in the series that are different in other countries? Bob Bilby. Did you know that Bob Bilby is not a rabbit? A lot of people think that this little animal Bingo takes home is some kind of rabbit, and even though he has long ears and the school mascot looks a lot like a rabbit, Bob actually isn't even a rodent. In fact, he's a bilby. You don't know what a bilby is? If your answer was no, it's probably because you don't live in Australia. A bilby is a type of marsupial, and it's related to the kangaroo, which means the females have that pouch to carry their babies. This animal is very common in Australia, but not in other countries, and a really interesting fact is that many people in Australia want to replace the Easter bunny with the Easter bilby, since the animal represents their country better. Now you know what a bilby really is. But remember, in other countries, people will still think he's a rabbit. Want to see more differences? So grab your popcorn and get comfy on the couch. Another Cinewave is starting. Bathroom. Have you noticed that in Bluey's house there are 3 types of bathrooms, right? There's one where there's only a toilet, another where there's a shower, a sink, and a bathtub, and another where there's a shower and a toilet. This is something very common in Australia, where many houses have the toilet in a separate space from where people bathe, and there are a few reasons for that. The first is hygiene. This way, the place where someone showers doesn't end up smelling like other things, if you know what I mean. But there are other advantages too, because it also allows for better privacy. While someone is showering, another person can use the toilet without bothering anyone. Maybe you thought that was unusual, but it's very common in older houses in Australia. Could the Healer house be old? Christmas. Depending on where you live, the episode Christmas Swim has something very different, right? It's hot! And yes, Australia really is a very hot country. But people who live in colder parts of the world must have found that super strange. That's because that episode takes place at Christmas, meaning in the month of December. And if you watch a movie from the United States set during that time, it's always cold. But in countries like Australia or Brazil, that's not the reality, because the seasons are not the same all over the world. Winter only happens in December if you're in the northern hemisphere, like in Europe or the United States, but in the southern hemisphere, that time of year is summer. That's why the Christmas episode in Australia takes place on a hot day, where everyone goes to the pool. Does Santa wear swim trunks when he goes there? Kangaroo. Do you remember the episode The Creek, when Bluey is afraid of exploring nature, but in the end she falls in love with the place and finds a kangaroo? Do you really remember that? Well, then you must be dreaming, because Bluey never found any kangaroo at all. Seriously. And the reason for your confusion is that the animal everyone thinks is a kangaroo is actually not a kangaroo. It's a type of animal called a patamelon, which is a smaller and more distant relative of kangaroos. This animal is very common in Australia, and the rest of the world doesn't really know it. Now you know. Pavlova. Now let's talk about something a little dangerous. Do you know the episode Pavlova? It's the story where Bingo finds a piece of the dessert made of meringue and fruit in the fridge. This dessert is called Pavlova because it was created in honor of a very famous Russian ballerina in 1920 named Anna Pavlova. She traveled to that part of the world, and that's how the dessert came to be. The reason this is dangerous is because Australia claims that they invented this dessert, but people from New Zealand strongly disagree, and they probably don't like this episode of the series at all. They still argue to this day about which of them invented this delicious food. So if one day someone asks you, have you seen that Bluey episode called Pavlova? Find out if that person is from Australia, Bluey's homeland, or from New Zealand before answering. Do you prefer sweet or savory food? Comment #sweet so we can get to know you. Cross. In the episode Early Baby, you may have noticed that Bluey was wearing a nurse outfit with a red cross, right? Well, if you're from the United Kingdom, you didn't see that at all. That's because in the UK, the color of the cross on Bluey's outfit was changed from red to purple. This is because there's a real health organization called the Red Cross, and the creators of the show had to make a different version for the UK, since in that country, the Red Cross symbol can only be used by very specific healthcare professionals. Crowns. Going back to Christmas in Australia, you probably noticed that the Healer family was wearing paper crowns during lunch at the pool party. Well, all around the world, Christmas has its own traditions, but in some countries, countries, wearing paper crowns as part of festive outfits is more common, especially in countries that were once part of the United Kingdom. This isn't common in many places, so if you didn't know about this tradition, that Bluey scene probably felt a little strange to you. Flip-flops. Even stranger is knowing that Muffin is wearing thongs on her feet. What? Wait, what do you mean? Well, this is a translation issue. Australia is an English-speaking country, but at the same time, it's quite isolated from other English-speaking countries. In Australia, flip-flops are called thongs. So in the episode where Muffin is showing her sandals to Chili, in English she says she's wearing thongs. And that sounds strange because in the rest of the world, that word is used to describe a type of underwear. Sun. In the episode The Beach, Chili and Bandit use some colorful sticks to apply something to their daughters' faces. If you're not from a very hot country like Australia, you might not know this, but those sticks are zinc sunscreen, since regular sunscreen isn't always enough. They're very common in the country, and when people go to the beach, they need to use them, especially kids. But did you notice that the sunscreen sticks are green and yellow colors? The reason for the green and yellow colors is the same one we see in the rugby episode, where Bluey's family and Lucky's family gather to watch an important match. At the end of the episode, we see Bandit all decorated in green and gold, because those are Australia's national colors. Yes, even though their flag is blue and red, the colors that represent the country are green and gold, because of a flower called the golden wattle, which is very common there. The subscribe button is right there, waiting for you. How about clicking and keeping up with everything we post? Barbecue. Do you know the episode Circus, when the healers are heading to the town mayor election? At the beginning of the episode, we see Mackenzie's dad grilling some sausages and serving people by placing the sausage on sliced bread. This dish is called a sausage sizzle in Australia, and it's very common there. The funny part is that it's happening during a city election. Having a barbecue during an election is not common in the rest of the world, but in Australia, and in Bluey, this happens because during these events, some schools take advantage of the large crowd to raise funds. Horse. We also have scenes that were changed in other countries, like in the episode Markets when Indy and Bluey are talking to a horse breeder, and out of nowhere, one of the horses poops a lot. This scene was shown on Australian TV, but in other countries and on Disney Plus, that moment was cut. Episode. The episode Dad Baby, where Bandit pretends he's going to have a baby, who is actually Bingo, was also censored in other countries. It aired on TV, but in the rest of the world, you can't watch it on Disney Plus. If you go into the streaming service, it doesn't even appear. In the official version of the series, Dad Baby is episode 13 of season 2. Birth. Still talking about this episode, which is available on YouTube, there's a scene where Bandit is going through a birth. Of course, it's all pretend, but at one point, when Lucky's dad is pulling Bingo's leg, we see some little lumps falling into the pool. This is a reference to something that happens in real childbirth. During labor, moms have to push really hard, and sometimes, well, they end up needing to go to the bathroom. Could that be why it was censored in several countries? Names. All over the world, people know Bluey. But did you know that several characters have different names in other countries? Bluey is called just Blue without the Y in Romania and the Czech Republic. Meanwhile, in Iceland, her name is Blaya. Bandit is called Billy in Sweden. In the Netherlands, he's called Buster. And in Iceland, Mr. Healer is known as Batty. Chili is called Caramella in the Romanian version. And in Iceland, her name is Silja. Bingo also changes in Iceland, where she's known as Bara. Did you know that? Uncle Stripe is called Franz in the Swedish version, and Bandit's older brother is named Radley in the original version. In Brazil, this character is called Jose, but in the Swedish version, his name is Ralph. Jean-Luc speaks French in most dubs, but in French-speaking countries, this little dog speaks English to avoid dubbing confusion, and his name there is Johnny. Chili's sister is named Brandy in the original version, but in Sweden, her name is Bianca, and in Brazilian Portuguese, Bluey and Bingo's aunt is called Betty. Lucky's dad is named Pat in most of the world, but in Sweden, his name is Pele. Meanwhile, Chili's dad in the original language is called Mort, but in Brazil, his name is Mario. Boys. In the Netherlands, in Arab countries, and in Russia, Muffin and Socks are boys. It's true. This happens because the translation of their names into those languages is masculine, so the dubbing has to treat Bluey's cousins as male. Weird, right? Allergy. In the episode Chicken Rat, when Bandit starts burping because he ate sauerkraut, that scene is different in the original version. The truth is that Bandit is allergic to that type of food, and when he eats it, he starts sneezing. But in other countries, the sneezing sound was changed to a burp. That's because Bandit knows he's allergic, but kept eating it anyway. And in other countries, they didn't want kids to follow Mr. Healer's example and think it's okay to eat foods that cause allergic reactions. Wow, there are so many differences, right? Let's discover even more about this in the future. The fun doesn't stop here. There are 2 amazing videos waiting for you on the screen. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.